Good evening, this is Stefan Bauer, and I will be doing the Viva / video recorded component for the IMAT2902 Object-Oriented C++ Assignment 2, which is the puzzle game using a physics engine, usually Box2D. Today I will be presenting my finished product, the game, Project Praetor, as I refer to it. And roughly speaking, as I will demonstrate, this is a game in which you are a giant alien ball with guns on. Now, unfortunately, I don't own a screen large enough to display a 720p recording. This is unfortunate, but it's just the reality of it, and unfortunately the labs don't do proper video recording. The other unfortunate thing, as you probably already heard, is that my mic has a tendency to do quite a lot of peaking and kind of crackling. I apologise for the technical setup, but that is the way it is. Now, hopefully you will be looking at the screen and going, my word, how amazing, it's got like background and foreground and stuff, and it does, and it's got an exit sign. You'll see that when I unpause using the P key, which you should pay attention to, because I don't actually tell you to do that anywhere in the report or in the game, so press the P key to unpause and start the game. Behold, parallax backgrounds and camera scrolling. Now, down the bottom you'll see our character. It's a small ball, which I can add rotational impulse to using the A and D keys, as has been so helpfully provided on this sign, because didactic learning is sometimes good when I remember and have room in the level to add signs. Basically, this is a game about movement. So, the most simple kind is with the A and D keys adding rotational impulse, which is all well and good. The second kind is you can press the up key, or the W key, to jump using repulsor fields. And this is quite good because it means that if you're on the ground, you can jump upwards, but if you're on a slope, you jump sideways. How cool is that? And then the third key way of moving is using your guns and the knockback they produce. So, for example, it is very, very difficult to get out of this thing here because all of your momentum ends up going upwards. However, if you use your gun, you can change your momentum in mid-air. And you'll see that, additionally, time slows down when I hold down the trigger, and can also slow it down manually using the shift key. So, clearly, I've already demonstrated in the first very small section the key fundamental puzzle element of this game, which is that you have two means of moving about which are unlimited but imprecise and very momentum based. So rotational impulse and jump and your repulsor field are both very much the whim of the physics engine. And then you have a very powerful way of moving about, which is the knockback from weapons, but it's very limited because you have a very limited amount of ammo. And as you will see as I continue this level, I may not reach the end because the key skill-based factor is being able to use it sufficiently effectively that you don't run out of ammo. Now, for example, I can use it to go around and round and do a loop-de-loop. Isn't that exciting? However, if you're watching closely, you'll note that, for example, I did it when the shotgun was at the top of the rotation, which meant that it imparted exactly the right amount of momentum at the best possible opportunity. As you can see, I've got a little sign there showing, my word, if you do it at the top, you'll get more fastiness. Speed. How marvellous. And this is, so essentially that's why it's got, for example, the slowing down element, because it means that you can be much more precise with your use of your very limited delta V. It's just like Kerbal Space Program, except completely different. Right, so, next section. Behold, I go up, but I fail. And why did I fail there? Well, I failed there because I was not using my momentum at the right time. So what I want to be doing instead is I want to be waiting until I've got enough traction and then firing it, and then still screwing up. this is quite hard, as I think I'm demonstrating fairly aptly. And then I need to blow out the door. Well done. And then finally I will go up again and hopefully bounce through. So you'll note that I'm waiting until it's at its peak point, and I've already got as much traction as I can, and then I'm still screwing it up. It's quite a skill-based game. And also I'm slightly distracted by trying to explain at the same time, which doesn't make it that much easier. Okay, we're through. Hurrah. I think let's use rockets to blow this up. Now, you will note that everything slows down massively when I fire rockets. That's because fundamentally I'm using a rather shite PC from 2013, so it's half a decade old and it wasn't that great to begin with, and the physics engine does rather grind down. It is surprising given that it's only a 2D physics engine, but that's the way it is. So and I didn't have this problem on the lab computers. So I mean, I'm going to finish up as quickly as possible and show you some code, but I do want to get to sort of the end bit, just, you know, out of kind of personal pride. No. That was really stupid and a complete waste of my time. Let's use that grenade. Good. Go on. Oh, that didn't really work. Okay. I'm going to stop any minute now. Promise. Right. There we go. And there we are. We're at the end of the level. And just as a final thing, you can do projectile jumping, which is kind of the fourth way of manoeuvring. So, hurrah, rocket jumping. How very cool. So, yeah, it's a puzzle game, and it's mostly a puzzle game about movement and about using your very limited kind of, basically ammunition is delta V, and that's the core of the game. Now, I hope you've also been going, my word, look at all this cool sprite work, because this is one of the cooler things that I think is in the game, which is the fact that there are 5 separate static render levels. So there's far distance, which is the kind of, well, it's the far distant blue lines which are doing the most parallax. There's mid background, which is the other blue lines. There's close background, which moves one-to-one with camera, as do the midground and the foreground. And the point is that all of this is loaded directly in from a .txt file, including a bunch of tile-by-tile references and placements telling you what, what file, what texture rect, what placement. And then those are all loaded in and then flattened to 5 distinct render levels, which hopefully should make it a little bit well, it should make it much more efficient on the GPU, because theoretically it should be much easier to parallelize. Right, let's have a quick look at some code. I'm not going to go into too much depth because it is 10:30 and I really would like to go to bed and submit and stop working. That would be marvellous. So, code. There's quite a lot of it. Behold, header files. Behold, many header files, in fact. Let's in fact get rid of that. So just looking at header files, you will see there are many classes involved. Most of these are because I did an awful lot of loading stuff in from text file, because one of the things I wanted to try and do was to make it a quite moddable game, which was a kind of a self-set goal. But fundamentally, I've been doing a bit of modding on commercial games, in the recent past, and I thought it would be an interesting learning experience to think about what stresses that places on the technical side, and I think I've done that fairly successfully. So, test level.txt, you can see this is all loaded in from file. All the static sprites, all the dynamic blocks, all the static blocks. Right at the top there's a bunch of kind of more level-based stuff where you can set things like the actual level bounds, which bounds in the camera and the gravity and the player location, and this obvious stuff. If I go to oh, hold on, I'm just right, that's graph viz. What am I trying to do? I'm trying to go to quick access, index, yep, that's in the correct folder. Project Praetor. Right, so you can see, for example, in my system folder, I have a whole bunch of stuff which defines, what types of ammunition are there, what kind of projectiles are there, and how they act. So, this has got it's basically it's a tab separated value thing that I made up on the fly. And then weapons are really quite advanced in that they are individual, and for example the shotgun, well, let's have a look at the rocket launcher. It has a sprite thing. It defines how big the sprite is, all that good stuff. It defines a bunch of different fire modes, which are these kind of individual firing behaviors, and then down the bottom it will chain the firing behaviors depending on whether there's enough ammo and so on and so forth. And that all works really well, which I'm quite pleased with. So it's loaded in a bunch of kind of factory objects, so projectile factory, weapon factory, ammo factory, and it all links in well with the Box2D stuff, and it all kind of works. And what else is there really to say? I mean, I could go into much greater depth on this, but ultimately, you've got the code. You can look at it if you really want to. You've seen the cool bit. The only other thing I'll say is that I did do a basic kind of unit test. It's a very basic unit test, which is just showing that I can do unit tests. However, it's not a complex and deep one, because almost every single piece of my entire code relies on being linked into Box2D and SFML. And I could have gone through and duplicated all of the linker properties, but that was just a bridge too far. So I've demonstrated I can do it, but I haven't really done it properly. Do with that what you will. I can certainly see why you'd unit test, but I hate linking so much. And that's all there is to it, really. So it's a basic game. It's all the content is loaded separately. With a decent content team who are really diligent, you could basically build a full game for commercial release out of this with very little code editing. Ideally, I would have liked to build an external code editor, but I didn't quite have time. So instead I had to do that whole level file, which is here. All 500 odd lines of this I did by hand, which took me 6 hours or so, and was pretty painful. But sometimes that's just what you got to do. But that would have been the next part. That would have been the next development goal. Would be to get a proper level editor properly going. And there's more mechanics I could have pillaged, but this is a vertical slice. So I hope that's moderately impressive, and I hope it's moderately interesting, and I hope you have some fun with it. There is a Doxygen file in the in the project thing. So Project Praetor, you can see it's got the HTML file, which will come up with the thing in the index, or roughly what you'd expect. Presumably it's down there. Yeah, index.html. Open it in your web browser of choice. Yeah. Enjoy. Hurrah. Yeah, it's been a long project, but I'm pretty proud of it. Thank you, and good night.